Let's see. Lige gået ind på eventet, så kan man se det lige om lidt. Så er vi live. Hello everybody. Welcome to today's live broadcast again here from Dream Data. Thank you so much for signing up today. And now that I think about it, I think the way we got this set up, Mie, is that I posted on LinkedIn that I was looking for more people to casually talk with you live on LinkedIn, and you recommended somebody else, and then I wrote, why don't you come and join as well?
Yeah, I think my comment was like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. I look forward to listening in. And then you called me out on that.
Now you're listening in. So today's topic is basically somewhere around how to set up, align, and unite a revenue team, which is something both of us experience with. Whether it's successful or not, we'll see in the future, but we at least can share our experiences about it. But before heading there, maybe you can just give an introduction to yourself, Mie, and why. Yeah, I know you have a long round in B2B sales, but just for everybody else to know, what are you doing today, and what have you done the last couple of years as
Yeah. Well, so today and for the last 11 months, I have been the CRO at Certainly. So it's a conversational AI platform, software as a service that we sell to e-commerce companies. So CRO, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that is. I'm responsible for all the revenue driving side of the business. I have a background in software sales. I work for a company called Siteimprove. Some might know it, some might not. Also, B2B SaaS company. I started in sales there. It's 11 years ago now. I was there for 10. Yeah. Started in sales, was part of building up the international sales. So everything around building up the sales team, scaling internationally, building up sales operations. I did that for 6 years. Then I had some years in product development. So I was a product unit director, so leading the development teams or the product management teams. And then at the end of my Siteimprove journey, I was in corporate development. So looking at the ecosystem, looking at a build by partner strategy, looking at what options did we have for growth through mergers and acquisitions. And then I was in need for new challenges, for a new journey, trying to do it again. And then I joined Certainly. At my time in Siteimprove, we went from 30 people to 600, and from 5 million something revenue to 100 million dollars revenue. So quite the journey. And the hope is to do that again with a new company. And also, of course, I got the opportunity to have a broader scope in my role. Yeah.
Super cool. And I think there's not a lot of people who are part of a journey that goes from 5 million to $100 million of revenue. That's pretty crazy. Then now you joined us as the person responsible for the revenue of a whole company. How has that start been? If we start there.
Yeah, tumultuous, of course. I joined at the end of last year, and we all know what the environment is now and how much it's changed. So I think the role as a revenue leader has also significantly changed just because of the macro environment. But I joined Certainly, of course, with the mission of, okay, I've worked in sales. I've seen how it is to be in a sales silo, right? And of course, you have great communication. Potentially, we're all great friends, but you're very focused on the selling part. You get some stuff from marketing, you hand some stuff over to CS, and that has friction, right? It just typically that has friction. And my wish with Certainly was to kind of, how do you avoid that earlier in the process, earlier in a company, so that you don't grow these mega silos and have this friction. So that was also part of my motivation to take the CRO role, where it's like it's the full responsibility, right? Big as it is, but then you kind of you can at least you have the mandate to control that to some extent.
Super nice. Was this something that the CEO or co-founders of the company were hiring for, or were they hiring for like a VP sales, or how did that go?
I think it was the primary focus was the sales, right? It was how do we scale the sales engine? So I think it was kind of both a little bit, and then through also the conversations where the CEO Henrik and I talked about how would you build this up and how would you make the teams work together. It just made sense to collect everyone under one umbrella. Yeah, so I will say it was something that they were looking for, but also partly sparked through the conversations that we had leading up to me joining.
Yeah, and just before I ask my next questions, anybody listening in, just feel free to type in a question that you would like to ask me or me. We'll be happy to reply as well. But then, how did the landscape? If we then start, what was the landscape at certainly at that point? Was it like traditional siloed teams, or did they have a revenue team as you perceive today, or how did it look?
No, I mean it was marketing, sales, and CS. And I think it still is today by name, right? We still have a marketing team, a sales team, and a CS team. What has changed is kind of me coming in with the chief revenue officer, right? It is the entire cycle, and also me adding revenue operations. So adding a function whose main purpose is to create alignment and support that through processes and tooling. So I think that's been the major change. And also both me and the revenue operations manager have the focus of how do we create transparency, not only through the tool, but also in our cadences with meetings, in our processes and all of that. So the teams in a sense, they still exist as marketing, sales, and CS, but there's some activities that are more overlapping.
Yeah. Do each team have a leader of its own, or do everybody kind of report to you? Or I know there's 50 people in the company at the moment.
Yeah. So right now they do, but that's not by design. It's not by choice. So I am looking for a head of marketing and to take that on. But then the head of marketing, head of sales, and head of CS, they report into me.
Yeah.
And also the revenue operation manager reports into me. So there are the ones that have a major in marketing, a major in sales, and a major in CS. And then it's more about for us and for what the revenue is. Of course, it's sales, it's marketing, and it's CS, but it's also, of course, partners. We have a great lead gen set up through partnerships, and then it's also the implementation team and the solution engineers, because we also want to focus on the time to live, the time to value, and use the learnings from that. So they all have major focuses, but some of the activities are crossing over. So we have sales and marketing working together on our content creation. So we have an e-commerce corner where we try to discuss the challenges, opportunities in the e-commerce space, which is where we operate. That's a collaboration between sales and marketing for lead gen. We have the inside sales and the marketing team are collaborating about the lead gen effort. So all of the qualification and all of those things. So it's more about, first of all, of course, creating the transparency of what happens throughout the journey, but also having activities that they do together.
Yeah, that's I guess it's not because you want to kill sales as an expertise or marketing as an expertise of its own. At least the way I think about it, it's more to get people thinking like cross-departmental, kind of how can we help each other do better, and how can we help each other reach the same goals? Whereas like the classic misunderstanding would be if marketing were measured on leads, and then they wouldn't give a damn about the quality of the leads that they send on to the salespeople, because they were just measured on the amount of leads that they created.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's more about thinking revenue. And I think one of the things, and it's not that it's not about killing the marketing, sales, and CS. And for some companies, it might very well work, right? I think it's more when you call it revenue teams or chief revenue officer, it's more you're kind of naming the problem. The problem is that teams don't necessarily think about the revenue, right? What's the outcome? And so if you have the silo approach, you oftentimes have more of an output mentality. Like, I created the blog, I got the leads, I did my calls, I did the customer meeting, but it's not geared towards 40% of the ICP engaged with this content, or the marketing qualified leads to the sales qualified leads ratio is ever increasing. It becomes more of a quantity metric focus instead of the quality metric focus, and the impact that it has, the impact that your activities actually have. Same with NPS or like product adoption. I think it's mostly changing that focus, and I think also changing the focus from, again, inside out and like deliverables to looking at it outside in, because to the person who's trying to buy whatever you're selling, it doesn't matter if you call it marketing, it doesn't matter if you call it sales, right? For them, it's just the buying experience, right? They don't care. And to that as well, the buying experience, typically for many at least, you can't expect people to call sales and then they'll tell you what it is, right? People want to research on their own. So whatever questions you answer in sales, you need to have them very upfront in the buying journey, because people want to research, right? And if you don't answer those questions through your blogs or material or whatever it might be, so that your buyer can self-educate, then you're kind of missing out. You probably will be missing out, right? Because they'll find the next one who is actually doing that and who kind of does it on the buyer's terms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got a question. I can't remember when, but it is also why do you think there is these silos in more traditional companies? And I found it so hard to answer the question because for me it's also it's dumb that it's so siloed, because as a company we can only spend our money one time. We want to put it in the buckets where we get the most return, rather than sub-optimizing one bucket. It's not for the greater of the company.
Yeah, I think you oftentimes get what you measure, right? So if you set your KPIs in the wrong way, well, then that's what you get, right? So if you have for your marketing, if you're very focused on the output and creating and delivering, then it typically becomes that. And maybe also I love brand awareness campaigns like everyone else, right? It's nice and it's flashy, but if you're not very aware of what does that lead to, what does that bring, what's the value of this, then it doesn't really matter. So I think it's about what you measure, and also for us, for revenue leaders, for every leader, to create that transparency of how does that tie in. So and certainly we have, and we're still building that up, but we have like a KPI tree. And we're not like doing OKRs, and we're not brilliant at that, but we're building up a KPI tree where we care about the revenue, right? We care about the ARR, the NRR, and we care about that we do it efficiently. So our growth efficiency, right? And that we're kind of taking it down and breaking it down for everyone to see. So, okay, we have this webinar. we believe that it has this impact because we can measure that it tracks up throughout the KPI tree. And I think when it goes wrong is when you don't align the dots, when you don't show people the impact, right? Because everyone wants to have impact. They want to know that their work matters, right? But it can be so very difficult to see how to do that, or to see the impact that you have, because we don't always measure properly.
Yeah, I think it's that's a really good exercise to do in whatever function you're in. Kind of, if I do these things, how do we ultimately at the end of the day end up making more revenue or upsell or whatever it is? Because that, if you do like a marketing event, it forces you to think about what is the cost of this. Is it a good deal that if we sponsor this event, how many would come to the website, or how many emails would we get out of it, and how out of these emails, how many will become sales qualified leads, and could we actually win enough revenue for it to be worth the time?
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Let's take a question here from Alberto. Do you have general goals shared by sales, CS, and marketing, or do you tend to set specific goals to each team, or maybe both?
Yes, so let's see. So we have some, and I don't know if that's the degree. So there's some that tend to overlap. For example, we know that reviews is something that we want to achieve. So that's something that's driven both with our customer success and our marketing. Same things like with customer stores. So that's an initiative that they have together. Let's see, and I mean, but they also, everyone has specific goals. I think one of the thing that pops into to my mind is the adoption of the product is kind of a joint effort, right? Because if we sell it right, with the right expectations, then the CS will have a much better chance of creating that product adoption, and product, of course, is also responsible for that. So I think that's one of the joint KPIs that we all talk about and try to measure. So how can we decrease the time to value? And we have some metrics around that, right? What is it that needs to happen when a customer becomes a customer? It's like this is like the game plan. How can we make sure that all of those expectations are set in sales and in marketing? So it right now, for where we are, it's more so initiatives and trying to learn from past experience, what went well and what went wrong. And I think that's also one of the points with the transparency when we have customers that are going live. So certainly it's a conversational builder, right? So when they become customers, they have to build up these flows to help their customers on the website. And once they go live with that, we do have a feedback motion, and everyone is kind of invited to join these feedback sessions. So again, the transparency about what went well, what could have gone better, is more so what we're trying to set up.
Yeah, maybe I have a way to think about it. You already almost said it before. You had these revenue KPIs. So, for example, when we have a Q4 target for revenue at Dream Data, then as a marketer, you should actually, your input to that should be delivered in the quarter before that. So the salespeople actually have enough leads to work on. So in that sense, the revenue is the KPI that everybody is running towards, but the input from marketing should happen already in Q3 for it to have enough time for the salespeople to actually close the money in the present quarter.
Yeah, and that's of course the shared goals that we do have are our company goals, right? So it is the ARR growth, the NRR growth, and doing it efficiently. But then it is broken down into KPIs that the individual contributors can directly impact for us. Yeah.
Here's the tough questions, which I don't know the answer to right away. From Maximilian here, speaking about KPIs, how would you measure the efficiency of the revenue team? You can start me. I don't have
well, it is a tricky one. So I think it's some of the things that we of course do measure is how fast, or try to measure, right? How fast do we build pipeline, and how fast do we close the deals? Because it again talks about the alignment, and leading up to that is the MQL to SQL. We've had a big focus on that, because in the top of funnel, right, you want to make sure that whatever gets in is qualified, and ideally that means that they've read a lot about you, how you help, who you are, all of that stuff. On the flip side, it also means that you have some lead scoring that just closes off the rest, right? So that you don't allow anything to seep through where you know that you're going to waste your time. So I think that's what we try to measure. It is the conversion rates that we have, because we know that that's an indicator of stuff not coming through and wasting other people's time. And I think also again, part of the efficiency or the quality of the revenue team, it's also about, and that comes later, is whether or not people stay, right? Did we actually qualify, right? Did we sell to the right person so that they stay? Because one thing is whatever we get in, whatever marketing says and sales sell, if you have a CAC payback, or if it takes you, let's say, 13 months to get value from it, doesn't matter if they don't stay, right? So you have to very early in the process think about, if I sell to this person, why would they stay? Why would they buy in a year from now? And that's also, again, one of the things that we obsess a little bit about, like, what's the ideal customer profile? Who should we be selling to, and who should we be excluding? And I think that again comes into efficiency again. The focus.
Actually, let's pick that just a little bit up, because I think the ideal customer profile exercise is something that is extremely valuable if you want to become a revenue team, or like united towards something. And at least the way I think you can ask anybody at Dream Data, and they'll tell you exactly who our ideal customer profile is. And to me, it has this advantage that everybody starts pulling in the same direction, because like marketing know who it is that we try to attract. Salespeople know who they should spend their time on. CS knows who we care the most about, and the product team also know who are we building features for. So kind of everybody's effort is towards the same goal in some sense. But it was painful to do it, to sit down and say, okay, we're not going to sell to everybody. There's actually people we won't sell to, and that took us a long time to reach that state where it's okay not to sell and speak to the whole world. And it's okay to target somebody. I don't know if you've been through a similar kind of exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, and you're never really done, right? And I think for certainly it's also been a journey and some tough choices, because you can say if you look at the space that we're in, right? You can use conversational AI or a chatbot for many things, right? They can do lead gen, they can do HR, like applications and all of that, or it can be you want to find out when the trash is going to be picked up in your municipality, right? There's so many ways, because it's just a channel, it's a conversation. So the company, and that was just before I joined, made the choice of we can't be one size fits all. We don't want to do everything. We want to specialize within e-commerce, because we want to help them. And it's interesting with the ICP, because it's ever moving. And I think one thing that's companies tend to maybe forget is, like, your ICP is only as good as the reasons behind why you chose it, right? Because of course you can go for, well, we want this industry, this size of company, whether it's revenue or whatever, But if people don't understand why did you choose this, then it doesn't really matter. It's not going to stick, and you can't unite around it. So, for example, for certainly we target web shops, and for us the ICP is the medium segment. So we want them to at least have 200,000 visitors, and it's not just for size and then they have money. It's because the problems that we fix, they come at a certain stage, they come at a certain size, right? Because we can help them automate stuff, and we can help them convert. So 2% typically converts on a website. We can help them with the 98 others, but if they don't have traffic enough, then it doesn't have value enough. So that the size of the problem is related to where they are. And on the other hand, it's also the size of the company. They have to have some resources in-house to actually adopt the product that we have. And I think that's very important when you talk about your ICP. It's not just like industry size, whatever. It's also the problems that they have, and having a common understanding of that throughout your organization is super, super important.
Yeah, we started. It was actually easier for us to start with an anti-thesis to what an ICP is. To actually say it's okay, it's not those, it's not those, it's not those. But then kind of you at least step closer towards, okay, what is it then if it's not? Out of curiosity, which tool or thing do you use to understand the amount of web traffic a site would have?
We use a couple of plugins, different plugins. So we have, we use, if we can't find it in the tools that we use. So we have, we use Ocean for data. We also have Subinfo. So we have different kind of data tools, but we also use VStat is also measure traffics, and SimilarWeb, which are plugins. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I've been
so a little bit of everything.
So Ivan has a question here, which I think we can try. Again, there's never going to be a perfect answer to it. Oh, yeah. If you had to start from absolute zero, how would you build your teams, and how would you ensure they are working seamlessly together? Any suggestions? I can maybe start this time, but I think it's about, making everybody aware that, as you said in the beginning, that people are part of the same customer journey, and that the goal for all of us is the same, which is to produce more revenue or more subscriptions or whatever it is, and we should act according to it. So like, it comes down to also the people you hire. You make sure that they see the world in this way, making, like, I believe you should do marketing to produce revenue, but the stereotype would be others like to do branding or communication and don't really think about that it has to pay off in the end. But I don't know, what would I do? I think one thing is to make sure that marketers do take part in sales conversations. I think it's a very good tip. And as we started out with Dream, that I think I did my first 100 demo calls. So you get a very good sense of what is it that the customers care about in the sales situations. I don't know. Any takes me on it?
Yeah, no, I think it's very much the same. I don't know if, I think if I were to start over, I don't think that there's anything that I would do completely different. I think it's again also the customer focus, and I think it's very much around the culture with customers, the customer first view, the outside in view, and trying to create that mentality from the beginning, because I feel like that gets more and more difficult if you get stuck in your ways, right? And also I think one of those things that keep on going wrong is like it's that you believe that the truth is within these four walls, right? And I do that myself. I am also like, oh, why don't we create this infographic or whatever it might be, because I think it's a super great idea. And then like, maybe I should ask someone outside of this room, maybe I should ask a customer. So I think I would, if I were to start from like completely from scratch, I think that my first focus would be even more customer centricity throughout the organization, and build that focus more, maybe even to the extent where you design your teams around the customer journey, the buyer journey, the brand, like those journeys, instead of having it marketing, sales, CS. And they do follow the journey, but I would maybe be even more focused on that. Like you're the awareness team. You're the consideration team, or whatever it might be.
So you said both customer centricity and customer first. Maybe you can just elaborate what you mean by that, because it's a very broad scope.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly just ask your customers, right? Like verify whatever it is that you're doing. And again, it's about the ICP, right? Whatever you build it for your customer, build whatever has value. And I think maybe that it comes down to revenue. What is revenue? What's the type of revenue that we want to have? It's the sustainable one. You only have sustainable revenue that like and customers that keep coming back for more if you create value. Well, you only know what value is if you actually talk to your customers. And I think on a day-to-day, you get very hung up in your deliverables, and you kind of forget your audience. What are they struggling with, and those things. So I think, and that's also something that we're continuously learning. One of the good exercises that we have now, we're looking at our website and how the navigation work and what we should be doing. And the first step there was that our design team, they sat and they listened through a lot of like qualification calls and sales calls. So what are people asking? Why are they asking these questions? What are they struggling with? So now the personas or the journeys that we are trying to build is like, oh, this person will come here. He will want to know X, Y, Z. How do we build a journey for that? So I think for me, customer first is just verify with your customers, right? Ideas are great. Gut feeling is great. Verify with your customers.
Yeah, and like I only just started like 9 months ago calling people who are our customers, or setting up meetings with them to ask them, why did you buy? How was the process? What was lacking in it? And I did, as you said, you just get so busy with running all your projects that you forget to, why don't you just have a conversation with those who bought and ask, why did you buy? What can we change? What was good? What was bad? And so forth.
Yeah. We do that too. We do talk about, well, and both, right? We talk a lot about why did we win? Why did they need us? And also, why did we lose, right? So if we have someone where like, oh my God, that's a match made in heaven, and then they didn't buy, they didn't choose us, then we go in and like we have that painful conversation where it's like, why didn't you choose us, right? What were the reasons? Because that also informs of what could we have maybe elaborated on much earlier in the process. What didn't we show? What didn't they ask, or what didn't we ask that we can then improve on? Yeah, and I think that it's the asking for feedback, right? It's understanding your customer and your prospects even better.
Yes. Okay. So lastly, let's maybe just shoot a few short, like very tangible things you can do to kind of improve at least the alignment between the teams.
Yeah. So I think
one by one.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's for us there's a lot about the tooling, right? And not everyone will have that opportunity. All of us are on HubSpot, marketing, sales, CS, right? that's very good for the transparency, because it gives you that 360 view of the customer, so everyone will know where to look up information, right? It's not going to be in Azure or Pipedrive or whatever it might be. Of course, having everything in one tool also comes at a cost of, then it's not best of breed in everything, but for the transparency, it's really great. So that, I think that's one of the things that I would start, because it gives you transparency into the customer. It gives you the same data to look at. So it creates at least a foundation for being united around some things and understanding what's going on. If you don't have that, and I guess even if you have that, there's some cadences that I would set up. So for us, I have every other week I have a commercial all hands with all the revenue teams, and it's not always like a specific format, but typically it's me talking a little bit about how's it going, what's top of mind, but then it's also taking people from the different departments and having them explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, what they're struggling with, so that we're trying to create that transparency of what is going on. And typically, I don't think there's been one where there hasn't been like, oh yeah, I should reach out to you, or I have a question about that. So it creates some transparency again, and people start to collaborate even more. Forecasting. So we have weekly forecasts, which is sales, inside sales, and the partnerships primarily. But then on a monthly cadence, it's people from the different departments, so leadership. So it also creates transparency. The salespeople will go through their pipeline. They'll talk about what's working, what's not working, what are we hearing in the market, and what are we struggling with. And it's not like a pipeline council necessarily, but then the CPO, the CEO, the customer success manager, they will all hear it and understand it and can kind of help that. So again, it's creating more of a joint feeling as well, like we're in it together. Sales is not only on sales, it's everyone, right? Yeah. We need to help each other get to revenue. And then a small thing, depending on what channel you have, whether you're in Teams, Slack, or whatever, we have dailies where we just write, this is what I'm working on, so that everyone can see that, and you can kind of tap into that. We are also a lot of people that are remote, so that helps everyone understand what the other people are working on. And then weekly highlights, which is something new that we're starting to have in a channel, which is also creating a lot of transparency around, like, what are we celebrating? What went well? What did we do? Like, what good did we do? And again, it's two things, right? It creates transparency, but it also gives a feeling of celebration.
I think that's, I really like that. I tried, every time something positive happens, I try to force people, make sure you tell the others, because it creates this positive momentum. Oh, she's contributing, or he's contributing, and oh, I need to contribute as well. So I really like that advice.
Yeah, and it's good. It is a little forced, but I think oftentimes if you don't force it a little bit, people won't do it. And it's not because they don't want to share, but you just often will get is this important enough? Would people care if I share this? Should I be sharing that? I think that is one of the things that like will keep people from sharing things. It's just their own feeling of, is this interesting enough to put in Teams or to put in Slack? Whereas if you kind of set up hey, you have to share, then people will do it. So I think that's at least an advice, in a sense, that you kind of have to force it a little bit, and then it will come.
I think if you see this as valuable for your company, you have to force it a little bit. So it could be like some of the things that we do is marketing sits in on the weekly sales meeting where they look at their pipeline to listen to what is that the salespeople talk about, because it's quite often you can spot, are they repeating the same comments from the customers? Well, then marketing should go and address that from the website or other places. Is there not enough trust in the product? Maybe we can go and create more success cases or gather more reviews or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's super valuable for the content creation, listening in on the questions, on the sales calls, on the qualifying calls.
And I think any kind of quarterly celebration should not only be for the sales team, but make sure you bring along the marketing team or bring along the sales team as well. So make sure you celebrate together that you hit your goals.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. Making sure that that you celebrate the joint effort, right? And also try to, again, that's also about the attribution, right? Try to make sure that you make people understand that it all fits together, right? And that's again with the KPI, like all these activities, it feeds into this. You can't always measure it. You can't measure it right away, but there's a correlation.
Actually, one nice thing we have done at a few all hands for the whole company has been to bring up customer journey maps of when we won a deal. And then you can kind of see, oh, it started with a click on an ad, and then they came to the website a few times, and then the sales team took over. And now this last third of the journey was happening inside of the product. So everybody understands kind of how united this journey is, that it's all components in the company that is contributing to winning this deal. So that one has been nice, I think, for everybody to see.
Yeah, no, that is a good one. We did it a little bit. That's a good one. I should start doing that more again, because we had that as well, just win summaries and why did they buy, but it's a good point with the journey and mapping that out even more. Yeah.
Super nice, Mie. Is there any last things that we should have talked about here that you would mention?
No, I don't know. I think the takeaways are, for me, it's a leadership assignment, a lot of it, right? It is creating the direction, making sure that everyone understands like the ICP, how you help them, and then creating a cadence for transparency and tooling for transparency, right? Those are some of the things that, if you get that right, you're in a pretty good spot. And then you throw people into it, right? And then, but I think then you're on a good way, on a good trajectory at least.
Yeah, and the opposite of that, I think, if you as an individual contributor should think about like the holistic view first, rather than your own little silo, or like if you can see something could obviously be done different in a different department, don't be afraid of walking in there and asking. Or if somebody else is doing something wrong, have a conversation with them and talk about why are we doing the things like this, and see, can we change something? Yeah,
I think that's a super good point. I had actually a former chairman of the board at Site Improve. He once asked me the question, like, if this was your company, what would you do and what would you focus on? And I've used that many times since, because oftentimes you also see that people are like, oh, but then I would ask these people, or then I would do that, or I would focus on this. And it's like, okay, that's great. Now you have that mindset and that focus, that it's not just, well, then I would push this live, right? You would actually look at the impact and look at the outcome of what you do. Yeah. So it's a question that I like to ask. It tends to switch the mindset quite a bit for people.
Yeah. Ask what you can do for the company and not what the company can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
That's poster worthy.
Yeah, I'll stop the stream now. Thank you so much for contributing, Mie, and I learned a
Thank you
good
for having